In 2026, I'm making a major change to my farm. And if you want to know what that major change is, then stick around because I'm going to tell you. Are you ready? The major change is that I am taking the entire month of July off from selling flowers. No deliveries, no harvesting, and no communicating weekly sales to my florist for the month of July. But I didn't make this decision lightly. This was built over actually many seasons of considering this. It came from looking at my data, looking at my time and my life, and determining what was the most important for me to do. I'm Ruth Ann from Abundant Blooms Flower Farm. If we've never met, I farm in West Michigan in Zone 6A, and I have frost-free dates from about mid-May until mid-October. I farm with my husband and our 5 children. My husband has a full-time off-farm job, and we sell primarily to florists. That is my whole objective of my farm. And I also have online educational resources for flower farmers, including my course, Selling Flowers to Florists. You can grab my free guide, Tips for Selling Flowers to Florists, in the description. And if you do that, you will be added to my email list, which you're going to want to be on because I am launching very soon a membership. And if you are on my email list, you will be aware of launch membership pricing. You will have the opportunity to be locked in to the lowest price ever. And if you're not on my email list, you will not know about that pricing. So if you are curious, get on my email list. Plus, I send a really great newsletter every week. So in this video, we're going to break down how I made this decision, what it actually looks like practically, how I think it will impact the income of my farm, and how you can use this to think about how to make decisions like this on your farm. So the first thing I'd like to do is just take a step back and think about, the farm from the beginning. I'm not sure if I absolutely positively from year one of my flower farm had this in mind. This is my 7th year of flower farming. And for many years, I have had the goal of having July off for many reasons. But when I started the farm, I had 3 very, very small children, 3 and under. And now I have 5 children, 10 and under, 10 to 2. And I knew that I wanted to take my children across the country on road trips. And the best time to do that is in the summer. So I knew that that wasn't going to correlate well with a flower farm from the beginning. I kind of thought, from the beginning, I'm either going to have to, at some point, hire someone to run the farm or take the month off or take some time off at least and be able to go do these things that I want to do with my children. And I only have one childhood with my children. So important things to consider are your time, your values, and other things that you're responsible for. For example, I am responsible for my 5 children. You might be responsible for other things like an aging parent or perhaps your children or other things, right? Like we all have different responsibilities. So I always want to feel like I'm in control of my farm. Sometimes I don't, but you want to feel like you run your farm and the farm doesn't run you. My lifelong dream is to take my children on several different road trips, but my big one that I really want to do is take them and drive to Alaska. That might seem a little random, but I was stationed in Alaska when I was in the Air Force. And so my husband and I lived there for 3 years. And I've just always dreamed of taking my children back to the place where my husband and I lived when we were first married and we didn't have any children, and showing them the beautiful state of Alaska. And you really can't do that very easily at other times of the year because summer in Alaska is the month of July. If you're anywhere familiar with living up north, you kind of understand what I'm saying. It's not exactly, but basically it's July. And it's beautiful in July. Anyway, that was kind of my always like this dream, or at least, like I said, maybe not from the positively the beginning, but for many years now, that's been my dream. Okay, and then there's other things that I want. My children are getting older. I want to be able to go camping for a couple days with my sister and friends and stuff like that. It just is really hard when your life is very stringent. Like on Mondays, I have to do this. And on Tuesdays, I spend all day doing this. And then on Wednesdays, I do this. And it's just very, very, very scheduled. And it's just very difficult to deviate from that schedule, especially because you need to have margin for things like weather and different things. So it just is very, very difficult. In 2026, I'm taking the month of July off from delivering flowers. I'm not taking the month of July off from farming. I'm still going to be farming and flipping my farm and irrigating and managing crops and pests and diseases and working on the farm, but I'm not going to be harvesting or delivering flowers. What I estimate is that I spend about 30 hours a week harvesting, delivering, and communicating with florists. So not farming, not like planting the plants, but those 3 things combined. So if I take 4 weeks off, I would save 120 hours of time. And so when I looked at that, I was like, wow, that's a big deal. 120 hours is a lot of time to be able to spend with my kids or go to the beach. And not just the time, but to have a lot more flexibility, because maybe I'm still going to have, you know, I'm kind of making this number up, but 20 hours of farming, but I can do those 20 hours in a very flexible schedule, as opposed to when I'm delivering, I'm on a very stringent schedule and I have to keep doing things at certain times. I've got to get a certain email out at a certain time. I've got to get my inventory updated in my 2 different systems by a certain time. And it just, there's a lot of pieces that have to match up. And every week you get kind of in a rhythm, but there's still a lot of things that have to happen at a very, very specific time frame. So it will save me a lot of time and give me a ton of flexibility. So I can go camping from Wednesday to Saturday and still do all my farm work, that I need to get done that week. So I'm really excited about that. So you might be wondering, am I going to make a lot less money? Well, I actually don't think that I am. And so how am I going to determine that? So last year I sold about $15,000 worth of flowers in the month of July. So how am I not going to make less money? So I think that I'm going to make about the same amount of money. And the reason for that is because I only have a very limited amount of space. And in that space, I have a lot of woodies and perennials. So I have a very limited amount of space for annuals, and they've got to really pull their weight. So I am going to plant more for the spring and the fall and have just a better, robust inventory on those two, times of the year. And I'm just going to cut the month of July out. Now, it might take a little bit figuring out, like I'm trying to figure out, okay, when am I going to start seeds and how am I going to delay my, initial annual planting so I can have stuff in July. And for some perennials, do I need to pinch them at a certain time? Different things like that. So there's definitely things to figure out. And I've definitely had my brain working a bit harder on crop planning. And I'm sure I'm going to be tweaking things and, changing things and stuff like that. But it's possible. And I think, over time we'll figure it out. So it might not be perfect, but I'm okay with that the first year. And so you might say, well, you're going to be harvesting more in the spring and the fall. So are you really saving that much time? Well, yeah, because I'm not going to be really harvesting at all during those months. So sure, I might be harvesting a little bit more. So, okay, 110 hours, but tons of flexibility, like I said. So I am not trying to expand endlessly. I have about an acre planted. I actually don't have an acre in production because I have a good portion of my crops that are very small woodies that are not even producing yet. They might start to produce a little bit this year. And the same, I have some perennials that are really very young. So I am not in full capacity with what I currently have planted. And I'm pretty committed to trying to not plant any further space. I do have a little hedgerow I'm secretly saving for some special things. I'm trying to find some trees and such, and some bigger woody shrubs. But for the most part, like, I'm not really looking to till up more land. In part, it's just very strategic. I don't want to have a 10-acre farm. So I'm trying really hard to stay on this footprint and make it the most profitable and sustainable by planting woodies and perennials and giving it more, just making them more resistant, having a more resistant crop plan, like resistant to weathers. Perennials are more resistant to those kinds of things, and woodies. So with the tunnels and different things, like, I'm just hoping to ramp up my spring and fall production and spread out the crops that way. And then July can be a reset window. So I'm definitely going to be planting and flipping beds and, just kind of irrigating, obviously, and that kind of stuff. So it's not like I'm going to take the time off, like I said, but have a lot of flexibility. And then I'm hoping to go into fall strong and not burned out and refreshed and with fresh crops. Okay, so one question is, are your florists going to order from you again? Are you worried about that? I'm really not. I have some really loyal florists and some people that are really, happy to have me. And I've kind of taken some insights from Butterbee Farm. She started taking the summer off, and she's done some different podcasts and talked about that. She had that concern, and it's actually made it better. The florists are hungry for her to come back, and they're just really eager to have her stuff, and it's almost made it, like, they're more excited to buy from her in any way than losing a florist because of it. So I'm hoping to have the same results, but I mean, I guess you never know. But so I'd love to have you think, like, how can you apply this to your farm? Like, okay, this is interesting that Ruthann is taking July off, but how does this really apply to you, or how can you apply this? So I'd love for you to think strategically about your farm. How can you make your farm more sustainable? How can you make it fit into your life and your responsibilities? So one other example of how I've done this in my life was 3 years ago. I was pregnant with the small child that is walking toward me crying, my 5th baby, and I was so tired, never been so tired in my whole life. And I knew it, like, I just knew it was going to be difficult. And so that spring, I didn't do anything hard. I didn't do anything new. I didn't grow one single new crop. I stopped growing dahlias. I didn't grow tulips, like, for that season. And I didn't do any other new sales outlet. I didn't go to any new florists. I didn't do anything more. I just was wanting to maintain because that's all I could do in that season of life. And so that's what I chose to do in that season of life to sustain my farm and make it fit into my life. Now, I didn't stay there, obviously. My situation changed. And so I made different decisions. So I just would encourage you to look at your farm and how you can make this fit into your life in a sustainable way that would be helpful to you. So I would love to know if you've ever taken a break or you currently take a break in summer. I'd love to know your thoughts on that and how that's worked for your farm and your family. And otherwise, if not, let me know your thoughts on this. And don't forget to get that free guide, Tips for Selling Flowers to Florists, so you can be on my email list and not miss the launch pricing for my membership that's coming out really soon. And if you enjoyed this video, I highly recommend that you check the video I did about flower math, is what it's called. It's kind of a strategy crop planning video. It took me a bit to figure out how to create that video, and I was nervous putting it out there that it would be confusing, but it has gotten such great feedback and comments, and my wheels are turning about how to create more videos like that. So check out that video, and I will see you next time in the next video.